Hello, BookTube. This is Time My Last Book Reviews. My name is Albert, and since day one I've started this channel, I have been waiting to do this review. The book is called Fritz von Erich, Triumph and Tragedy. The main reason I chose now to review this book is because in 1 week, on December 22nd, will be the subject of a movie coming out. The movie's called The Iron Claw, starring Zac Efron. You folks may recall months ago a photo of Zac Efron went viral on the internet. It was him like jacked up out of his mind in a towel. And I saw that photo, read the caption underneath it. It said that he was preparing for his role as Kevin Von Erich. And there was nothing else. No title, no nothing. And I immediately thought to myself, like, Kevin Von Erich? Of like the Von Erich family? The wrestling royalty? Ooh. And two thoughts came to mind. One good and one bad. First, the good one. Professional wrestling is probably my greatest passion. I've loved it all my life, and I've stuck with it. And it probably is my number one passion. So to see a major motion picture with a big star like Zac Efron was was just a it was just so wonderful for a fan like myself, just to see professional wrestling getting its moment in the mainstream media. And then there's the bad thought. I'm well aware of the history of the Von Erich family, and if this movie is done well and done right, it's one of the damn most tragic stories you'll ever hear. But before we get to the movie, let's start with the man himself, Fritz von Erich. He was born Jack Atkinson in 1929. A child of the Great Depression. His father was a sheriff. Or the crazy stories in this book, how like the father took his young son on like late night raids, like they were tracking down moonshiners together at night. That's quite a dangerous place to take your kid, but that's the type of tough upbringing this Jack Atkinson had. Young Jack Atkinson, he was a star football player at Southern Methodist University, and later on he became a professional wrestler. And I'll give you an idea of what a monster this man was. The guy was like 6'7", enormous. And back then he took on the persona of a bad guy or a heel, as they say in the industry. And back then wrestling was quite crazy. It's like when you were a heel character, the villain, like you got genuine heat from the audience. Like you would bring people out of their comfort zone and make people do things they never thought they would do. It's quite a wild and dangerous time. And think about this: to make your living in such a crazy industry, especially as the villain, goes to show you how tough this guy was. Just give you a place and time. We're in 1954. So here's young Jack Atkinson. He's the bad guy in the show. And what could he do? What character could he play to really draw heat from the audience? Well, he certainly found his character. The man would portray a Nazi sympathizer. My God, that 1954. If you want to get heat from the audience and bring out the most passionate response of a crowd, that sure as hell is the way to do it. And long story short, Jack, or as Fritz von Erich, which was the wrestling name he took on, he rose up the ranks. Eventually, he was running the wrestling organization, the National Wrestling Alliance, which called the shots, ran all the sections, different promotions around the United States. And then afterwards, he left his job as president, and he bought the territory in Texas. And this is where the Von Erich family name really rose to the ranks of royalty. And coming with that, all the tragedies and all the hardships that would fall him and his children. Fritz von Erich had aspirations. He's running the Texas territory, and his sons were going to be the stars. And that's where we bring to this book, and where this movie will probably what this movie will probably touch on too. It's just like the lives that these boys had. You hear all about child stars and whatnot. These boys were very much thrust into that because of their father. Even from the time before these boys were even professional wrestlers, they were, because of their father, they were like celebrities. Anytime they did something in high school, something in athletics, they were the talk of the town. They were in all the newspapers, so they really were child stars and beloved by the whole community. Think about it. It's hard to imagine the pressure those boys must have been under. It's like their father's a king, and they had all this attention just thrust upon them. Think about it. It's really a tale of caution, like no different than any other child stars we've heard in recent years. I use the word tragedy to talk about the Von Erich family. One other word you can use to describe his family history is cursed. And if I could backtrack for a second, this curse actually began with Jack's firstborn son in 1959. Fritz von Erich, I keep going back between Jack and Fritz von Erich, I apologize. I'll stick with Fritz von Erich. Fritz von Erich's firstborn son actually died at 7 years old. Like he was outside. There was like a loose wiring in like their home, and so all the boy did was he just put his hand on like the metal outside of the home. He got electrocuted. He fell face first into like a puddle of melted snow and then drowned. So even before the boys as wrestlers, this family was cursed right from the very beginning with their first child. Then we jump ahead to the boys as adults, the wrestlers. You can only imagine like the pressure of having the Von Erich name, having their father's image and legacy to live up to. It's something awful. Like I said, there were 5 Von Erich boys who became wrestlers. Only one of them is alive today, and 3 of them actually died by suicide. I won't go into every brother, but I'll tell you about one. There was a brother named Chris Von Erich. From the start, he was born poor health, and he had brittle bones. Also, to say that he was not as tall as his brother was an understatement. His brothers were like 6'4", 6'7". You look at him, and I just look at him in the footage. I don't even think he was 6 feet tall. So imagine that you have the Von Erich name. You got to live up to your brothers, and like you got to live up to your father's name and reputation. And I guess the poor guy must have felt, felt so much pressure from having this mantle to carry that he ended up shooting himself. So yeah, sorry to be such a downer this week, but this story, there's really hardly any bright spots with this family history. And I forgot to mention before too, the movie that's coming out in about a week, it's made by A24. If you've ever seen an A24 movie, you know there's no such thing as a happy movie. So everything they do is dark, depressing. Like you'll watch it thinking, "Wow, that was a great movie," but you will just feel numb for the rest of the day. And really, the main reason we have this movie coming out now is because of the surviving brother, Kevin Von Erich. He was kind of out of the limelight for a long time. A few years ago, he was the subject of a documentary. If you're a wrestling fan, or you know anyone else who's a wrestling fan, they could probably tell you about this documentary series called The Dark Side of the Ring. And Kerry and his family were the subject of one of the early ones. The documentary was called The Last of the Von Erichs. And so it's only in recent years that did I say Kerry? I'm sorry, I meant Kevin. It's only recently that Kevin Von Erich has come out of the limelight and really started to tell his story. And because of that, we have this movie that's right around the corner. And he seems like such a good guy too. You see where he lives nowadays. He lives in like Hawaii. He's in the beautiful nature. You see, like he lives in such a serene environment too. Really hope the guy is doing all right despite his trauma, because he just seems like a really good guy. And I will leave you with that, folks. As you could clearly see from this video, there were 2 purposes. One, to talk about the book that I just read, and also 2, to help promote the movie. I'm sure it's going to be, as far as movies are concerned, as far as tragedies are concerned, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I highly encourage everybody to go see it when it comes out. It wasn't until I started making YouTube videos that I realized I read a lot of depressing stuff. Like I got to mix it up. I got to add some levity every now and then. Which brings us to next Sunday. That will be December 24th, Christmas Eve. So I'm thinking, what book could I read to bring a little joy and laughter on that day? So I have a memoir here. I like to think of him as like God's gift to mankind. Just an overall humorous guy. We've seen him in so many movies. He's been a fixture in the lives of a lot of us. So please tune in next week on Christmas Eve. We'll be reading the memoir called Making It So by Patrick Stewart. There you go. Sir Patrick Stewart, excuse me. Have a good week, everyone. I will see you next Sunday.